You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I am here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
And today we will be discussing, a classic Wonder Woman story that's actually been done. I didn't know this. Technically 3 times. And we're going to talk about a day in the life of Diana. It's basically the Jimenez. It's one of the issues in the Jimenez run, I believe.
Yes, it's well, that is the first time I think it kind of, was fully explored. The only problem is that it was, kind of, yes, it was about Diana's life, but on your side is a ship character that you don't like, and then it's
Oh, you mean a certain lame character?
yeah, and then it's by the end it felt like a justification or using Diana as a mouthpiece for the status quo. And that's the thing. It's a day in the life of Diana. It's not at the end justify someone else's status quo. And that DC falls into that trap a lot.
Yeah, they definitely do. So the first story is A Day in the Life of Diana of Themyscira by Clark Kent. So it's Wonder Woman 37. So describe this for us.
Okay, so Diana, this is after they've had their awkward date and kiss and kind of just decided to remain friends after Action Comics 600. And the thing is, the Superman books, they pretty much disregarded Clark and Diana's relationship, potential relationship, romantic wise. Platonically, it was just really awkward.
By the
And
way, you know what I just noticed? Why is Clark's S blue?
the coloring, Jared,
Yeah, I was like, wait, am I seeing that correctly?
it's just probably a coloring mistake that's been there for years. I've
I
seen this
know.
panel 1,000 times, and it's kind of like, yeah, it does stick out like a Thor, sore thumb. But yeah.
I'm sorry, I was a little distracting. Go on, sorry.
But yeah, with this story, um, on well, at least Perez, he was trying to be more mature about the situation, and I think I know he really wanted them to be romantically, involved, and this could probably be a another topic um for us for another episode, but it was in a sense a parallel between Hippolyta and her relationship with Hercules, and then Diana developing a relationship with Clark, and how Hercules with Hippolyta was, very the abuse and just toxic, and then you have Clark where he comes in to Diana's life when she's young and they're very innocent and pure and just someone that she can trust. And so what Perez explored and what he pretty much established was that even though Diana was disappointed in the fact that Clark was basically like the poster boy for the status quo, thanks Byrne, but they still developed a friendship, and Clark was still the one of the most important people in Diana's life, and her trusted friend, her best friend, and that was still a beautiful thing. So with this, this is, like I said, after their awkward date. they meet up, and Clark was invited by Diana, which she was really excited for him to uh, come to Themyscira as Clark Kent and basically learn of her culture. And that was very much a missed opportunity because with opting to have Lois, again, you feel like this is an editorial thing of wanting Clark and Diana to be a little bit distant on the Superman side, probably, but have Lois, you know, shoehorned into the Wonder Woman books for them to have to not so much as establish a friendship with them. It's just more so again that I would say a hint maybe or a seed is planting a seed for later on where Diana basically becomes a mouthpiece. Um
Yep. Oh, and by the way, this is a new record. 5 minutes, 30 seconds, and I already got an idea.
oh my god. Oh, I have to be quiet.
Just that, oh my god, it's so worth it.
I need to. Wow. Okay. So so yeah, with this we see in the panels how Diana is very disappointed because she wants to, share her life with Clark. And again, this was a missed opportunity because even though they weren't romantically linked, it's still a very beautiful thing for them to be best friends and for Clark to be inspired and learn from Diana. And that in that sense, he will more so embrace his own um, heritage.
Yeah, I like that, and that's really cool. And yeah, so that was the biggest like what the hell happened? Because yeah, that whole thing on the Wonder Woman side is collected in the first Perez omnibus that I have. So I remember reading it, and then it starts off with Diana having dreams of Clark, and I'm like, okay, this is getting good. It's getting good. She has her publicist get in touch with Clark Kent, who obviously can get her in touch with Superman, and then the next issue, literally the next issue, she's flying to Greece to visit the Capitalis's family or something like that. And then she's like, too bad things didn't work out with Clark. I'm like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah, it's I like I said, I blame the Superman editorial as we see even present day how Diana is ignored, how she is not the one example that I can think of right now is recently in the recent Superman issue, how Batman and the Justice League was featured and was saying, the Justice League is on standby to fight
Yeah,
Doomsday.
the heavies are on standby, and I'm like, okay, Power Girl, yeah, you can count her as a heavy. The Atom over Wonder Woman.
But what I would say is that
Which, by the way, Britt, when you actually read Justice League Unlimited, this makes this moment all the more worse because the way the Justice League works now is the heroes are divvied up for assignments based upon the need. In other words, what their powers are best suited for. How is the Atom suited to fight Doomsday?
exactly. And also in the first issue, basically Clark and Diana are the team leads.
Which, by the way, that was freaking awesome. And I will say this. And actually, it was more Diana, as a matter of fact, when you read the issue. And I'm reading this, and I'm like, I disagree with Mark Waid on a lot. At least he's giving Diana something to do.
Exactly. So for you not to have her in that group shot of heavy hitters, it's kind of like, yeah, this is done on purpose. And it's really lame. Also, even the mention of like close friends, it's only Batman mentioned, but it's never Diana, really in the conversation with Clark or, about Clark's life. But on Diana's side, you see, well, Tom King, he wants to write a Superman book or Batman book. So, of course, he's going to shoehorn in those two and their sons into the Wonder Woman book because of the story that he's attempting to tell and very much failing to tell.
Attempting, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we know the reason why Diana can't be seen as Clark's friend is because she in some ways resembles Lois, and then if people see Clark close to Wonder Woman, all of a sudden, why isn't he with her?
Exactly. And then you have Wonder Woman 800. You have these different issues within even their relationship within the New 52 and how it was handled with the transition of Rebirth. Diana remembers the relationship, but all of a sudden Clark doesn't. Actually, with what Dan Jurgens had it for Reborn is that it never happened. And
Yeah, but
then
then literally the Wonder Woman book references it, and I'm like, wait, I thought this wasn't canon anymore.
exactly, but it's only referenced in the Wonder Woman book. And then we have Wonder Woman 800. We have Immortal Wonder Woman. You know, all these references to their relationship, ambiguous or otherwise.
Also, one more thing. You know what's kind of weird? Remember when they were trying to retcon that Superman had the new 52 armor after he came back to life because he was like recovering?
Yes.
So here's the problem with that. We have the books that take place immediately after his death for like months and months and issues. He never need. That's the problem with retroactively retconning in that armor. It never shows up. You can't do that.
Yeah, nothing makes sense with trying to nitpick or cherry pick or you know copy and paste or whatever. None of it contradicts itself. And
And
so
people wonder why Rebirth failed.
yeah, like regardless of the nostalgia road trip and the one trick pony type stuff, yeah, it and Dan DiDio, he said it that on paper it seemed like, Rebirth was a success, but it really wasn't.
Mhm. Yep. And if there's one person that would know, it's Dan DiDio. By the way, refer to our Dan DiDio on Rebirth episode that we discussed this. So anyway, and I'll try to remember to put a link to it on this point in the video. So yeah, it's because here's the thing. When you like, granted, Britt and I have said for the longest time that the new 52 had issues, pun intended. But here's the thing. Too much stuff happened near the end of the new 52 where it starts to look like it was intentionally like destroyed, because it's like when you put Tomasi on Superman Wonder Woman, knowing how he feels about Clark being with Lois, what the hell are you doing? And my friend Robert brought up, well, maybe he was the only one that wanted to do the book, and I'm like, okay, here's what you do in that case. Just cancel the book, and then sometimes refer to their relationships in like Justice League, Superman, and Wonder Woman. That's it. I'm not saying you had to keep the Superman Wonder Woman book going forever if no one that would do it justice would do it.
Exactly. I mean, if you did not want the relationship to continue, it should have ended with Charles Sewell issue 12. And I mean, honestly, that would have worked. But at the same time, it felt like a push and pull or, tug of war because the book sold. And what's even more a shame or sad or something is that they've given Batman and Superman, you know, three books. I believe, yeah, it was three. Was it three books? Um, Team up books. So within the
Mhm.
past 5 years, You have because Williamson, I think Gene Yang, and now World's Finest with Mark Waid. You have those books, and but Superman and Wonder Woman sold a little, more or less than the same as the New 52 Superman and Batman book. So if you can give the World's Finest a book um, set in the past, you can have Superman and Wonder Woman set in the past as well and
Well,
explore.
yeah, and that's what they should have done when they had that 5-year time skip with Justice League. I'm like, wait, because it's like I will admit the relationship is kind of shoehorned in the New 52, and I'm like, hey, give us a flashback book, but you know why they don't do this, and it's a similar reasoning to why they pushed Wonder Bat so hard in the DCAU. They didn't want people shipping Superman with Wonder Woman.
Right. I think, well, I wouldn't say that it was shoehorned. I would say that how everything was so pressured to it was kind of like you snap type thing. It's like you need to hurry up and, you know, bring in some type of success, bring in some type of attention, you know, and so they just pretty much threw it out there, but it was something planned. The execution m- may have not been, peachy, but at the same time, it was a plan that they already had and, set for Clark and Diana to be together. Now, the one thing that I do think, however, is that how successful it was. Now that succeeded, expectations, and they just didn't know how to keep the momentum going. So instead of actually, putting in the investment or, being genuine in keeping Sewell on the book or bringing someone in that actually did have a story that would want to take up the challenge, you sabotage the book, and then um, you basically blame the relationship or you try to tarnish the relationship as if it was something bad. And in the fan base that the relationship gained or that New 52 gained in general, you push them to the side and you shame them for being fans. And then when you don't have the support, you know, it's kind of like you question why you don't have the support. And it's kind of like, well, fans aren't very trusting of you because one minute, you have this book and the next it's being, you know, said to be like the worst thing ever. Or,
Or
the
it's like you're
way
not a real
DC,
fan if you like this, and I'm like, okay, if you don't want me to buy your stuff, I won't buy it. I'm not required to
exactly,
purchase DC Comics.
right. So how they mishandled Clark and Diana's relationship has been for decades. Pre-crisis, I mean, they were pretty much separated, and it was, you know, just hints here and there. It was all fun. You didn't really take the relationships serious like that, like no one is concerned about Endgame and stuff like that.
And then
Um,
you get, and speaking of Endgame, all right, so Wonder Woman 170. So this issue does a lot of stuff, but it also refers to Immortal Beloved, which whenever I hear a reference to that damn comic, this is what pops in my mind.
Why did you say that name?
and the thing is, it was so unnecessary, but knowing how Jimenez was a Trevor Barnes and Wonder Bat fan, it's kind of like, yeah. And then also in the 2010 encyclopedia, Wonder Woman encyclopedia, it was like the way he referred to Clark and Diana's relationship, how he basically was saying how it was one-sided, um, and mostly on Diana's side that she was pursuing Clark, and
Is because he
how,
can't say that like Clark was lusting after a woman even though he was married.
exactly.
Jimenez, see, here's the thing. I am very grateful that like a lot of Wonder Woman fans are overlooking their nostalgia and like saying, was this run as good as it was? Now, to be clear, Wonder Woman was some cool stuff. Like, I have the issue in my collection right here. But I have this issue twice. Here's the thing. So it comes in the Wonder Woman 80 Years of the Amazon Warrior, but also comes in the trade for Paradise Lost that I picked up when James Gunn announced it as part of the DCU. So I picked it up, and this is one of the things. So Jimenez legit confirms that Diana has an accent. So I'm like, okay, there you go. And that she smells like olive oil, apparently. Olive oil and sweet wine grapes. But it says her voice, it starts with her voice, not sing-song, but still melodious, alive. Accented with just enough Greek to be exotic. And I'm like, okay, thank you for saying Diana has an accent. Take that, Susan Eisenberg.
Yeah, yeah, it did. He did have some good in his run. I would say, the way he dealt with Hippolyta, Diana's relationship with Hippolyta, and the fact of in this issue, we see how Diana is very much into science, how smart she is, how charitable she is, her being an ambassador and everything. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. It's just the fact that that becomes overshadowed again when you are worried about shipping and worried about the status quo. It's like it's unnecessary. This is a day in a life with Diana. It's not let's see Diana's life, but then at the same time, you have you throw these jabs at. Well, at the same time, I will say that Diana was right when, or Jimenez was right to say that Clark he passes, by appearance and how he's very privileged. But if he did look like John Jones, then he wouldn't have that privilege. And that's something that the Superman fandom and Superman writers very they are purposely ignoring, that Superman is very privileged and he doesn't, he's spoon fed a lot of things. And the thing that New 52 Superman did is that
He had to fight for it.
Exactly.
And actually, I'm very happy there seem to be like kind of repeating that with Absolute Superman. More on that later.
Right. So, but post crisis Superman, he had everything, and it was kind of like um to be that privileged, but at the same time he acts all like a pity party that, oh, I'm not human, or for him to be preachy, about certain things. It's like, no, he you can't be an inspiration, that to have that label when he gets everything so easily. It feels like if you are an inspiration, it's something that you had to go through and actually learn from it. And that's something that Superman, even Mark Waid, he does not want Superman to struggle. He wants everything to come easy. He doesn't want him to fail. And it's kind of like, how are you an inspiration if you can't fail? That's how are you learning something? How can you
Yeah.
teach something?
How do you inspire?
Right.
That's again more information, more ammunition that Kingdom Come was more Alex Ross, because guess what Superman does in that story, Britt? Guess.
He fails.
And he struggles.
Yes. But
Big
he also learns.
whoopo, huh?
He also learns from it, and he had Diana to help him to also become a teacher. Um, so yeah, and with this, how random you have Immortal Beloved be referenced, but the thing is, Jimenez, you know, reference it to basically coddle or to give Lois, or Lois fans, I would say, acceptance or confirmation is to have Diana as a mouthpiece and say how if he were to Clark were to have died, it will be Lois that he will be thinking about. And while, yeah, it's true within that story, it was still, that story was very much a bait and switch. And because within his monologuing and everything like that, Clark was saying how he was forgetting about Lois, how he was more so, getting closer to Diana, and how even before they went to Valhalla, how he he was contemplating his feelings. He was conflicted about his feelings, for Diana, and how he can talk to her, but he can't talk to Lois. Things like that that were being set up. And then you have this ending where, well, how we've talked about it, if they were to have gone through with, being together, and then they come back when it's kind of like, say within real time of 10 to 20 minutes, yeah, that is very much you cheated. We wouldn't want Superman and Wonder Woman caught up in a cheating scandal. That's just going way too far as the heroes or the characters that they are. Um, but the love triangles, yeah, sure you can do, but that's only if Superman wasn't married as well.
Hmm.
So that complicates things a little bit more. And if you want to go back and forth with that, you should have had him divorced, or should have, got rid of the marriage in the first place. And then that's another thing, is that once they got married, after a while, within 2 years, they wanted to get rid of the marriage anyway. So you have it where some writers want him to be with Lana at the time, and then you have other writers who want him to be with Diana. Then you have the others who prefer or want to stick with the status quo of Lois. So you have three different ways, and how do you basically get rid of the competition? Is you um disrespect the other female characters. So
By the
you
way,
have
fun fact: did you know that artist John Romita Jr. hates Lois?
I did. Yes,
I,
yes.
all of a sudden, I became even more of a fan of that man.
He did. He let that be known in interviews when he worked with Jeff Johns. So that was interesting.
Yeah, and he had to draw Lois in Superman Year One. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, even though he might not like the character, it's still the fact that of being professional. And that's the thing, is that, you can not like a character, or you can not like a status quo. But as a professional, you are supposed to at least have some respect. And that's the issue with that. Some of the nostalgia writers and editors, they let it be known that they don't like change. And that was one of the, biggest problems of New 52.
and
It
yet you're working for DC,
Yeah. And
the
some of
the company known for reboots.
them just feel like they own the characters. You're not owning the character.
You,
You
you're
are
you're borrowing them, but it's
correct.
like when Greg Rucka felt the courage to say, "Okay, Wonder Woman is bi because she comes from an island of only women." Like he's some authority, and then people will say he wrote a very successful run on Wonder Woman. I'm like, yeah, but he didn't invent the character. Or it's like when I had a buddy of mine. I'd say about a year or two ago, we did this thing called Snyder Saturdays, where every Saturday, this is what movie night turned into. I mean, but this is what turned into movie night, where we would watch all Snyder's movies. And I remember I was having a debate with someone about, like, in the comments about Man of Steel. And someone said, well, Mark Waid said it's not about Superman. I'm like, why should I care about what Mark Waid thinks? They go, he wrote a very successful run of Superman. I'm like, yeah, he can only testify to the way he wrote Superman. There have been many and many other artists, many other creators, many other versions of Superman beyond Mark Waid.
Exactly. You cannot hold up just one writer or one storyline as the gospel, because, first of all, there is another writer who has a better understanding of the character, who has far more respect of the character, or a better storyline. Some Superman fans have a problem with holding up the same stories. I don't think All Star Superman is the best. Um, I don't
Particularly
think,
not for like an introductory for Superman, because that's what some people bring in as like an introduction to Superman. And I'm like,
no.
no, that's when he's dying. By
um,
my friend William from the Sci-Fi Center, but by William, if you're watching this, please don't steal this topic because you steal all my other topics. But it's all good, dude. But he recommended Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come, I would say that you don't have to know everything. It's it's a self-contained story to where, yeah, um it can be used as a recommendation,
Yeah,
or
because it's
as an
like
introduction.
here's in a nutshell what Kingdom Come is. But with this, it's like, see, the problem is when you have someone that has like their favorite writer, their favorite artist, they will become like prophets for them, and they will believe that they can do no wrong. And that is the
Right.
problem here. It's like when Mark Wade went on that political rant and said he was going to give like lesser quality work because an election didn't go his way. And I'm like, dude, I'm not saying you have to accept the election results, but you don't say I'm going to give you crappy work on a book that DC themselves labels as the most important book in the current line. You cannot do that.
Right. I just think that he threw a tantrum, but of course, for his job's sake, I don't believe he would do that. Like, you might have it, it, it was kind of like he was putting out a threat or something, an indirect threat even to DC, and yeah, he cannot, actually do that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think that DC probably came to him and said, you need to stop this, because even if he didn't intend on going through with it, you can't put that in the mind of the comic book buyer that you're going to give subpar work intentionally.
Right. That is, I mean, that's really shooting yourself in the foot.
Plus, that's not fair to Dan Mora, who definitely does not deserve that. But anyway, so this is not a conversation on Mark Waid. But anyway, but it's a conversation about unprofessional creatives. So Tomasi, but it's like, the problem is like, let me put it this way: you can have your preferred version of the characters, but you cannot act like those versions of the characters are the only version of the characters that are valid. Because I'm sorry, that is objectively false. If you're dealing
Exactly.
with a universe that constantly reboots and has existed for since the 1930s, yeah, your version of the character is not the only version. And it's kind of funny. Yumi and Jid have this conversation all the time, how Superman fans, for some reason, don't realize that Superman was not created in 1986.
Right. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, that was my Superman, and that's all that matters. It's kind of like, okay, it, and that's the thing that we talk about. It's a multiverse. There are different interpretations to these characters. It doesn't have to be a one and only.
For these people, it does. But remember, it's like I had a
True.
conversation with someone on a panel where they hated the new 52, and I said, well, actually, you know, and wanted to like decanonize like everything it did. And I'm like, well, first off, you had the Court of Owls, and it did save the company. And they go, I don't care. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, if you don't care about the health of the company, if you care more about your preferences for these characters than what's best for the company, I got news for you. This is the one time I'm going to use this. You are not a fan.
yeah. Okay, so the way that people use the "you are not a fan" thing, it's more so if I don't like this, and well, no, yeah, if I don't like it, or if I don't agree with it, but someone else does, then yeah, they're not a fan, but they're not a fan of of that person's interpretation. Or kind of like how fans, they put their headcanons out as facts, and they get mad when DC or Marvel doesn't validate their headcanons. Um, and sometimes, like with Rebirth, these writers who kind of go overboard, they do validate those types of toxic fandoms, or fan mindsets, like I said, just like Rebirth. with the fact that Jurgens had a vendetta and did not like New 52 Superman. So what did he do? He called New 52 Superman fake, that he wasn't the real Superman. And then DC followed suit and was saying how the real Superman is back, referring to post crisis.
Or the real power couple is back.
Right. And it was kind of like, no, they've never been a power couple. And there's no real Superman. You have different iterations of Superman, and those are just as real as the one that you are trying to glorify.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and Jurgens, didn't you write Coward Superman? So you're not exactly the biggest the biggest like arbiter on what real Superman is. So just
Right.
saying. So then we get to the third story. Sensation. By the way, so first off, I will say, so it's Sensation Comics featuring Wonder Woman 48. When I saw this image, I was like, oh, hello, Henry Cavill.
He looks like Henry, and is it Matt Damon? No, not Matt Damon.
Ben
Wait,
Affleck.
Bomber.
Oh, yes. I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
Another guy who was almost Superman.
Yes. Him. Matt Bomber. He is kind of like a mix of those two.
And by the way, kudos to the colorist. Diana actually has a skin tone in this.
Well, actually, the model, her name was, oh, wow. Her first name was Donna, and she was the artist based Clark and Diana off of, of course, real life people. And Donna modeled for him. So Diana's skin color is the same as Donna's.
Well, it works.
Yes, definitely does. With this story, back to Jimena's story, it was basically what we said, that it did have some good in it, where we saw Diana doing her work, her charity work, being an ambassador and everything like that. But just at the end, or when he wanted Diana to be kind of like humiliated for Trevor Barnes, or the fact that, again, a mouthpiece for the status quo for Superman and his marriage to Lois, those kind of things is kind of like, you could have kept that out. This was about Diana, and it should have been really celebrating Diana's work, and not at the end of the day, you have to make Lois feel better type thing. With this story, it did so much better because it was about Diana still showing Clark of who she is as an ambassador, more so not just for like civilian work, but also her de-escalating, or kind of like being a mediator against the war. And she also officiates a lesbian wedding. She and then she helps. I think she deconstructs a dam or something like that, or something that has to do with a natural some type of natural construction or something like that. But it just really just shows Diana's work. And you have Clark, because he can, be on the same missions as her, and he can really understand that heroic side. But also as a reporter, he's taking heed to her, and being able to, when he writes his expose, he can let the readers and the public know who Diana really is. So, and then they have a conversation about this, of Clark feeling lonely about his and missing his heritage, and Diana, again, she can help him with that, because she is so within herself, and she is proud of herself, proud of who she is. She can help him. The only thing that was funny within this issue was that Diana was trying to be inspirational or supportive. So Clark was saying how he was lonely and, how Diana has her sisters back home and everything like that. So Diana felt, she's like, well, I'm going to name, you know, um, the word for brother for Themyscira, Cal. And it's kind of like he felt, a little like, did I just get friend zoned? And stuff like that. But it was a cute moment where he's like, well, I just, gained a whole lot of sisters. But at the same time, within that issue, it still kind of felt like they ambiguous a little bit. But yeah, the awkward moment for Diana to say that, well, the mascara's brother meaning is Cal is kind of like that. Yeah, that can be a little awkward for him, especially if he had feelings for Diana.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that's gonna be a little odd. Let me put it to you that way. But I do like where Clark goes, "Oh, I didn't know you were a proponent of gay marriage," and then Wonder Woman goes, "Where I come from, it's just called marriage. It's only women on the island."
Right, but also with Diana, that does speak to her because she was not taught to be discriminatory. She embraces all life, um, not the problematic love, but she does embrace all love. We any person with common sense will know the type
Well,
of
yeah, because because Raka also then tried to say that she's pansexual because she loves everyone, and I'm like, that's not what she means by I love everyone.
yeah. I mean, she is okay. So the thing is with the whole sexuality thing, Diana, I would say you can't put a label on her, because she's just the embodiment of love, and it's a purity to it. It's an innocence. It's seeing life, it's happiness for her.
Yeah,
Um,
but I'm just going off of like what DC like designates as like where she like aligns on that spectrum. So I'm like,
exactly.
it,
So
it
it's
I see. I have to designate this because people have been saying she is for like a long time, and DC has been indirectly telling them no.
exactly that is pretty much why I don't like the label thing. I like stop doing that because again, it falls into when fans they want their headcanons to be facts. And when they don't get their way, then they want to rage on Twitter and stuff like that. And it's so annoying and ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like Anthony Mackie went through a little bit of this when he was like, I think it was Twitter or something like that. Someone asked him about Bucky and Falcon having a relationship. So Anthony Mackie says, it's possible for two guys to be friends and not right.
Right. It's no, not with this sort of generation that has, I don't know if it's kind of like it's an obsession with who is with who.
Particularly with Diana. And here's the thing. It seems to me, and Britt, I know you're going to agree with me on this, that a significant portion of the Wonder Woman fan base is more concerned with who she's sleeping with than if she actually has good stories. Like when
Exactly.
Wonder Woman 10 came out, they were saying, okay, we know that Tom King is a war criminal and that this really bad, but we have to support the book because then they'll put Minerva together. And I'm like, you hypocrites, you have literally no principles.
Right.
I'm like,
That
so if he gives you your ship, you'll support a crappy book that is doing character damage to Diana or the character?
yes, definitely. Yes, that is even, and the thing is with us with Super Wonder never. Even with Red Sun or Injustice, that those are terrible examples, but those are the only examples I could think of. But the fact of trying to at least um hint, tease, or whatever with the ship like that, yeah, I would never accept that. So for you to want Diana to be with a murdering, psychotic, manipulative furry, stop it. Like, no.
That, by the way, I'm going to make a bold prediction. Cheetah is a spy for the Sovereign because, and here's the thing, I know Tom King is a talented writer, so I know this is not like he just did it willy-nilly. Ask yourself this. Why would the Sovereign just drop Diana off on an island that happened to have Cheetah?
Well, sometimes, okay,
And wait,
sometimes,
I'm going to reiterate. I know King is a good writer. When I've seen him write good stuff, that's why I'm holding out a little bit of hope that this is the reason why. Because if there's no reason why the Sovereign just let Diana go beyond, okay, we need her for absolute power, just let her out. I'm like, then that will be horrible writing. But I don't think he's doing that.
because, I mean, Tom King has his ways of, yeah, like you said, he can be a good writer. However, he does have the plot over the characters. So it's more so like we can't really say that because look what he did with issue 7. Like Diana was in the middle of a fight, and in issue 6 where she, was passed out or whatever from fighting Grill, and then all of a sudden she's going to a space mall with Clark.
And that was because Sampera needed a break, and I think King wanted Sampera to be the one drawing the story. And I'm like, okay,
Yes,
but
but at the same time, it made no sense at
it
all.
it literally does make no sense. And I had Comic Storian on the show, R.I.P. He and I were talking about this, and even he goes, "Yeah." So she gets captured, and then she's like at the mall with Clark. We're like, "Wait, what? I think we were missing something."
I mean, at least what they could have done was like had that say it's a flashback or like at the very beginning of before she had the fight or something like that. But for him to place that right there and basically not give any type of timeline, indication, yeah, it is very much King is putting the characters just within the plot that he wants. It's not so much as him, coordinating this properly. And the thing about it too is that he purposely or, just so openly saying that his run is a bunch of red herrings. I feel like it's not so much as red herrings, but it's him switching up his ideas. Like he isn't satisfied with something, so he changes it and then claim it's a red herring.
Yeah. Which here's the thing. Like he even said that like Emily's gonna play a part at the end of the story, and I'm like, okay, if she's not Trinity's mother, what are you doing?
Yeah, what is her purpose?
Watch. I think what's gonna happen is because here's the thing, and Britt and I have talked about this. It's like, so how does the Sovereign know how Trinity was born? So my thinking is Trinity in reality is Emily's daughter, and that Clay origin made of Steve was just the Sovereign's idea of what happened.
It had to be
Because that's the other thing. How does the Sovereign think because that's the only way Diana punching her mother in the face makes sense, because then it's like that's what the Sovereign thinks the Amazons are like.
And the fact that like the Sovereign was used as a mouthpiece for Diana and Steve's relationship, and like how does he know that detail or whatever of their relationship to say how it's only, Diana and Steve, and even with the fates or with the with the fates, how did he know that Diana got a piece of his soul? How does he know that she went to visit Steve in the afterlife? Stuff like that is just really weird. Or even how does he know that she is the one that stole the flag? That she was going to steal the flag? That
Exactly. Which is why, again, because when my friend Robert was interviewing King, the minute he said, "Oh yeah, the first 20 issues from the Sovereign's perspective," me and Robert were like, "Come again?"
or the fact that he knew she was in a cave.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Again, there's too many details that the only detail that makes sense is Sovereign knowing how Steve died because he was there.
right. But everything else that even, within Diana's um the issue 4, I think, with the Wonder Girls, and them visiting Diana, and just everything within the story so far, except for what's funny, issue 7, which didn't have any type of narration from Sovereign, but
Hmm.
everything else has had the Sovereign, and it's
Except for the Absolute Power tie-ins. And if you
which
notice,
again,
the Absolute Power tie-ins, she was acting less robotic.
no, she was
Granted, she was
acting like
still. Granted, she was making out with Steve during a prison break, but that's what's telling me that yeah, that all the egregious stuff that happened in the 20 issues, that's just what the Sovereign thinks. Now, should Tom King have taken 20 issues to say this? No. No.
right. But the thing is, I would say that, yeah, she was less, no, she was very robotic still in the absolute tie-in issues, because when she was speaking and how she was saying her name as I am Diana Prince or whatever, there was one like dialogue box where she speaks like she's speaking in bizarro term, and
Oh yeah, it's like he called her Woman of Wonder, and she called her Man of Army.
then she says,
Yeah, but that's like a little jab at like how he called her a Woman of Wonder. So I kind of get that.
not that, it was where she's talking to the lackeys or whoever of Amanda Waller, and she says, "You think me weak? You think me something like that?" But she was speaking in third person or first person, but she was
That's
saying,
actually a way that's actually in a way sometimes Diana does talk like that. So I'm not going to hold that against him.
I mean, no, she
Is
wouldn't
it
say
awkward
you
as
think
hell? Yeah, but I've heard her because that's like something like Old English or like ancient Greek. It's like the way that like some of the Greeks spoke. So I'm not gonna like hold that against him.
I, I mean, the thing is, Diana is not, she doesn't have broken English like that,
Uh,
or it's
that's understandable.
like some things, Jared, is some things that even if you want to say Diana has kind of like her something that she articulates. Diana is very precise. Sometimes she can be very descriptive, but broken English in that sense, no, there's no way Diana it speaks like that. And especially if she's been in man's world or the outside world for over 10 years. Like, and if you go by post crisis, Julia was her English speaking, teacher. So yeah, that some things that if King wants to give Diana flaws, or he wants to do something on purpose to make her seem exotic, or something like that, yeah, no, it does not fit within the iteration of what we have. Now, you putting her way back into the fish out of water type thing, and it also is like if he is trying to mock um Gal's version, because she had an accent, and so to say that he hears her voice, even Gal doesn't speak like that. So it's some things where it's kind of like you were just you're trying too hard to make her seem like she's not American.
Understood. So then we get so now as you and as the viewers know, whenever Britt and I critique stuff, we like to provide recommendations on how we would do it. So we like to provide solutions to problems. So let's start with how would we do this with Clark?
Okay, so it's basically putting all you know the stories together, that Clark, he is invited to the mascara. They're both excited this time. He isn't obligated to any other responsibilities, and you actually have him go to the mascara. And that is, you know, the one thing within these decades that DC has, or at least within the post crisis of them being best friends, it has been a missed opportunity. Or even, with a New 52, with the Amazons being uh, transformed into snakes, it would have been a little bit more powerful, I would say, for Clark to even visit then, to see how Diana can show him around still, but how painful and sad it is for her to see her sisters turned into snakes, and how Clark pretty much he could have, like, he felt like he could help her, even though Azarello wouldn't have wanted that, but still that sort of you know, uh, connection within the books, that he offers his help to her,
Mm-hmm.
and then to show him interacting with them after Azarello's run, when the Amazons are transformed back, and how, yeah, they are still very much antagonistic and the conflict, but to have Clark be on the island and still have that interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, to see Hippolyta still um, a golem, it was like for him to have that moment with Diana still.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, you start off with Clark visiting the mascara. He sees Diana training, and how that also put sow the seed in a sense of Diana training Clark, because he's interested in, he's not just a brawler or, things like that. He has to be a little bit faster. He doesn't just punch, he has to learn how to actually fight. And I think that, again, with DC wanting Superman to be kind of perfect and, uh, to have everything come easy for him, we don't actually see him train or, in that sort of combat type thing. But with Diana, she's the one that can probably challenge him with that. So, that would be the opening scene. Next we have her, she's going to a charity event, and again, the ambassador really emphasized on her being an ambassador, which honestly, if Rucka, he should have been, instead of worrying about like the status quo and a ship, he should have been worried about uh, placing Diana back as an ambassador, because that was part of his run, So that is something that he should have implemented. And then DC, they are still, for a lot of the fans to blame New 52. New 52 is over, and Diana is still just portrayed as the warrior instead of showing her, as an ambassador.
And you know what's interesting? I just had this idea. Not for our story. Not for our story. I promise. Um, you. This is what they could do. This would be an interesting story after the King run wraps up, because what you could do is you could have it where Diana. This is when Diana decides to open the embassy or open back up. I don't know what's canon anymore. Where because she's like, we need to have a more like open relationship with the outside world. So let's have an embassy in DC, and I will be its ambassador.
That is honestly perfect. Like for I mean I think they tried to do that with Nubia actually, to have Nubia take the place of Diana in a sense of opening Themyscira to the outside world, and then with King, how like thousands of Amazons have already like lived in the outside world and established families and stuff.
Yeah,
That
where's that?
that honestly takes away Diana's uniqueness of how her purpose was to open up the mascara to the outside world. So honestly, that's kind of a contradiction, because why are thousands of Amazons living in the outside world? Um, and like, if if that's the case, why is the mascara still secluded then? Like,
Yeah, what's the point?
you know, that's what I'm saying, is that King, he did not think some things through. He might can, write miniseries or maxis at some point, but some of his plots are very contrived and
Again, he's one of those writers that I don't think can work on a ongoing title. He did the same
not at
thing with
all.
Batman, where it's like, by the way, I enjoyed his Batman run, so I want to be clear on that. But it's like some arcs went on for way too long. I'm like, wrap it up, bro.
Yeah, and it just felt like, well, his whole entire plan was for Bruce to marry Selena, but at, at the same time, it's kind of like that still did not take 100 issues. Like, you know, that could have been 12 issues. And even when he had the 12 issues of Batman and Catwoman, that, you know what, I don't even know what was the point of that series. Like, I know they introduced Helena Wayne, but
She wasn't even
the
canon then.
and he was very much trying to make her canon, but yeah, that whole thing just did not make sense and was a waste of time. You had Clayman art, and that was his art was okay, for the most part. Um, but yeah, the whole storyline, it just made it seem like Batcat was very toxic. Like at the end, it's kind of like, why would we root for them as a couple?
Yeah, it's odd. Let me put it to you that way. So moving on. So why is Clark shadowing Diana be- better than Lois? And I don't mean for the obvious reasons.
Okay, so Jerry.
You know I
Um,
had to.
okay,
I'm
so
the dude, by the way, that when he played Suicide Squad, killed the Justice League, and Lois popped up on the TV, I would shoot the TV.
oh my God.
I
All
literally did
right,
that, and I was like, "Go away!"
all right. So with this, again, you are putting this in the perspective of Clark and Diana as best friends. So they understand each other. They are, Diana trusts that Clark will he wouldn't be biased in that sense, but and he will be, objective, but he will um tell the truth. And Diana loves, and this has been said in the comics, is that she loves the way he articulates things. She loves reading his articles and everything like that. So with that, and you have that exploration of the ambassador, and the hero and the reporter, but you are, of course, it's a gender reversal. than having Lois, because of course Lois, she's the love interest and she's going to be biased. She wants this story for glorification. Clark wants this to basically show how Diana is here to help, that she is here to put, like, especially with her work for women and children, he is helping emphasize that. Um, then, like I said, you have them as best friends, you have them as equals, and Clark understands just Diana's. He understands Diana's perspective, and so and her purpose and what she wants to achieve. So he can, make that a little bit easier for her. There was also another story. Actually, I forgot. It was in since I think it was in Sensation Comics as well as issue 48. It was Lois interviewing Diana, and Lois is, of course, she's being a little bit antagonistic.
Well, she's Lois.
Of course. And she says something about, the questions that she asked was pretty much, she said it was like a puff piece, that Diana was just a puff piece. And she asked about Diana, in a sense, attraction to her coworkers, which is, the Justice League. And she said something about how Clark isn't a Superman, which Diana was kind of like, oh, so, you are kind of blind. So it was a little antagonistic there. And at the end, of course, it was Diana and Lois trying to make it seem like they were friends. Diana calls Lois a wonder. It again, you are trying to prop up Lois at the expense of Diana, in a sense, and that is something that it just shouldn't be. Like, leave Diana out of that. If Lois is a great character all on her own, let her be a character all on her own. Don't use another female character to prop her up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing about Lois. The problem I have with the character is that, well, in addition to the terabytes of YouTube videos I've recorded on how much I loathe this woman, it's really like DC has two ways of trying to tell you Lois is important. They'll denigrate Diana, or two, they'll turn her into other characters, like when she became Perry White and when she became Diana recently.
Right.
Or in the damaging to my soul Chris Claremont story.
Right. They honestly, trying to make Lois relevant again, it's a lot. It's at the expense of other characters.
It just comes across as forced, and I think more and more people are starting to go, okay, guys, stop.
Right, but at the same time, you have a lot of Superman fans and Lois fans that will talk louder and harass more, in all of that. But
yeah, but I just ignore those people.
Yeah. And the next part is, again, Clark. This is also within, just the overall thing of a full circle within their relationship. It's about how Clark is inspired by Diana and how she takes so much pride in her heritage, and how she, uses that as her motivation and her motivation and inspiration to have other people in prideful and just celebrate and embrace who they are and their own heritage, and that's something that she can provide for Clark.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of what Clark and Diana's relationship is supposed to be. So there's another thing that inspired this episode, and this is a movie that Brit's seen that I have no idea what the hell this is about. So Roman Holiday. So Brit, please explain this to me.
So I love classic movies, and of course I am an emotional person, so boo-hoo,
Oh,
all
really?
that in.
I would not, it's not like I'm accumulating a mountain throne load of points.
Oh, yeah, right. Um, so this movie is a classic, romance, much better than what we have in the present day. It was in 1953, and it's basically about a princess who she wanted to escape, that royalty life, how controlled she was, how, she just wanted to be free. And so she stumbles oh, she wanted to explore Rome. So she meets Joe Bradley, an American journalist, and they just go on an adventure together.
A
Um,
princess and a journalist. Man, this is on the nose.
exactly, that is why I chose it. And for it to be a classic as it is, and pretty much it's referenced a lot. Again, Diana is a princess, Clark is a reporter. The the story writes itself, especially for them, because Diana, just like the princess here, she's a free spirit. She doesn't want to be like a caged bird. And Joe Bradley, the journalist, he's very reserved and everything, and she brings, that she frees him from, and just to have fun. And that is something, again, that Diana does for Clark. And even though within this movie, the princess and journalist, they don't have a happy ending. It was, kind of like a fling, little brief thing, but they still enjoyed themselves. With Clark and Diana, you can obviously build on their relationship to last much longer.
Yep. So then we get to, all right, Clark and Diana, Superman and Wonder Woman. So let's go with this.
Okay, so with them again, you have Clark and Diana. The reason why their relationship can last a bit longer than the characters from Roman Holiday is because they actually share a life together, heroic life. They are partners and best friends. Even though, yes, DC editorial and Superman writers um, want to keep them apart for the status quo, it's pretty much inevitable in a sense that Clark and Diana, cross paths, and they have those moments where they can't help themselves. And we have stories like Immortal Wonder Woman or Wonder Woman 800. Um, they also understand, being outsiders as a refugee and an immigrant, and that brings them together to explore the world together with that perspective. And again, they share this um, the desire to help humanity. That was the one panel within the Wonder Woman anniversary issue of Tom King,
Mm-hmm.
where he says that Clark and Diana are like strange visitors of, within the the outside world, but at the same time they love it so much and they want to protect it. And that is pretty much the I would say the thesis maybe of their relationship.
Yeah.
That is the foundation, is that these two are, so unique, but at the same time they are brought together by that one purpose, and is to help people to understand, the beauty of life. Um, and then again, you have that understanding and that emotional connection that Clark and Diana have because of their being outsiders on or two sides of the same coin.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I love him, because it's like, again, that The last few issues, pages of Justice League 12, it's like perfectly summarized in just a short, honestly, like a page and a half, why this works. Because it's like all with this, they are the only two characters on the Justice League or in each other's lives that fully understand everything about what the other goes through.
Yeah. And
So, yeah, go ahead.
you can't give you can't give Lois temporary powers just for her to, for them to think that she can understand Clark's heroic life. And the fact that you have to give her powers, for her to understand is kind of like, yeah, that is why they aren't, as compatible as DC tries to make them, because they are so different. Like Clark is the one that has to basically belittle his self. He has to choose the quote unquote human life over his heritage um, as a Kryptonian, and we will discuss that from how that was pretty much the biggest example of this from Superman and Lois.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that. So then we have their parallels and differences.
Okay, so again, the princess name is Anne. So, like Diana and Anne, they are very much free spirits, and they feeling the pressure. Diana, she doesn't want to just be the next queen of the mascara. She knows that her purpose is outside, and she feels pretty much the same way. She just wants to go exploring. She wants to just see what life has to offer than just being a princess. Um, and Clark and Joe Bradley, they both are journalists, and they understand that uh, you know it's being a journalist. I would say that it is a little bit frustrating, especially when you're trying to meet deadlines. The story that you're trying to you have to make sure it's factual and everything like that. So it's and also it just feels kind of boring a little bit. So you want to have that um something spontaneous in a sense. Um and when you meet these women who are again free spirits who can break you help break free of that, you pretty much can't help but to fall for that sort of thing. And that is what Joe and Clark does.
Sweet. And I agree 100%. Then we get to our all right, so here's ours. Here's how we would do it. Britt, continue.
Okay, so with this, pretty much it's the same setting of a Roman holiday. We can have it in the present day, or we can even, be a little bit different, and have it in the 1950s, like this, something classic. Um, it was also in black and white. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can see Clark and Diana having that sort of dramatic type romantic background.
Well, do
Um,
you know, kind of funny you mentioned that. There's so when they released the Snyder cut, they also released an entirely black and white version of it.
Yes, something like that. It just seems like some um, movies you can enjoy in black and white.
Hmm.
Um, so also another difference between this, obviously, is that Clark and Diana have the heroics, the sci-fi and mythical, that fantastical type elements within their story.
Hmm.
So within this story, of course, you have Diana. She just feels like she wants to take a break from the Justice League, from being, an ambassador and everything. And she takes Clark along to let's go, just traveling the world. And I say that Diana would be the type that loves food, and love trying food because she loves like, exploring cultures. So the one thing that she does love to do is taste like, the different dishes, significant dishes in the cultural aspect of it. And so yeah, they just go um for different foods and the different music, especially because she loves going dancing at clubs. Um, then once they are spending more time together, Clark and Diana do get closer, and really just understanding that, you know, when they feel the pressure, that they can come to each other and they can either talk or they can have these spontaneous like type adventures together. Um, and at the end of it all, they still know that, kind of like how issue 7 ended for Superman and Wonder Woman. How Diana said the world is taking a breath,
Mm-hmm.
but is going to release, and we're going to basically get back into that reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much how this story is. It's for that moment they are able to just get away. And yeah, reality will hit them hard, but at the same time, they can cherish this moment together and learn from each other and just be vulnerable, and that's something that even in the comics we don't see anymore. We see Clark and Diana depressed. We see them,
Particularly when they're written by Tom King.
right. We see them kind of like pity party type thing, but it's not. And that's another thing that Jimenez did right was Wonder Woman 175 when Clark broke down and, cried in Diana's arms. We don't see that anymore. That true emotion where it actually matters. And within this story, that is something that um, that's explored here.
Dope. So then, all right. So now, as you guys know, Britt and I have been tracking the Absolute Universe, and Absolute Superman #2 came out, and I gotta say, pretty good.
Yeah, I would say that it's good. Um, my only
Of course,
criticism,
you have to have a criticism.
Jared, I can't give them tens. I can't do that. Is that falling into certain traps as the main line again, with, even though it has to have a sense of like familiarity, it's still that, okay, don't go too much of the same so quickly, or don't go too much of the same at all. So I would say that the positives, I will say, Cal still being a writer, that is, honestly, that is a trait that he should have. As us being writers, of course, we'll be biased about that. But also it's just something that um Cal being articulate about certain things because of Jor-El and Laura. Um, and what's kind of interesting is that Krypton embraces AI and how it's actually destructive for Krypton.
You know that's probably Jason Aaron talking about reject AI art.
And so it's very much, yeah, in reality of how AI is basically taking over our lives in the internet now. Lois is instantly infatuated by Cal, which, I mean, she is. She can't just be independent, and that was the one thing that I was trying to kind of state in a sense. uh, is that she has to have that sort of yeah, she's a potential love interest. Like she can't just be independent, and that's the one thing that's kind of like her downfall as being a character, and trying to expand her, that she is still pulled back into this status quo. Um, and she falls into the damsel in distress type trope because not only, yeah, she stupidly cuffs herself to Cal, but she's in the way and she ends up having to be carried. You know, that same position that they all always have her in uh, with him. The positive is that Laura created the suit. I love that. And
Yeah.
how she is very much a super genius because she created it when she was 12. You know, like Laura is
When you think about
she
it, Britt, this is another concept they're bringing over from the new 52, how the suit is basically nanotech.
yes, I love that. And I love that Laura is she's equal or she's taken the front seat from Jor-El within the story. That is the one thing that New 52 did as well, that Laura was still very much front and center with Jor-El, or even Jor-El had to take a back seat from to her.
The other thing that I want to get your opinion on is the cape just looks so freaking
Oh,
cool, and how it
I
actually
love the
heals
cape.
people too.
Yes, I love the cape. The entire design is very good. Um, and the last negative is Lois instantly becoming a journalist. Like she loves to write because, of course, for plot reasons, she has to have a reason to um, document Cal and to basically be chasing him as a story. So, again, I understand that there's some things that have to be kind of the same, but not too much like this. Like it's very much predictable. And that's the thing. If you're going to create a new universe, actually have a new status quo because this is supposed to be the opposite of the main line. So we already have like uh Scott Snyder sort of hinting that Selena and Bruce have something. Then you have Wonder Woman with uh, Steve. No, they seem like they are platonic. Diana does have like a semi crush on him or whatever, just because. Um, but the fact that his origin is still the same of landing on an island, it's kind of like he lands on a island, but in hell, that's not creative as they think it is. And then with this of Lois, yes, she is a basically a cop and a bad one. She's on the side of the oppressors, but going too fast of making her the damsel, the potential love interest, and the journalist. It's kind of like, okay, you're doing too much of the same.
Yeah, I see what you're doing. I mean, I see what you mean. I'm still like, I'm not as like doom and gloom as you are. But no
I
offense.
am not doing gloom. I'm just being realistic, and I'm just calling out the certain points of, you know, if you're going to say that this is a new universe, actually do something new. Don't fall into or don't write the same old, same old.
Well, that's DC. They always do the same old, same old.
Yeah, and it's and basically what I've said before. It's an old house, but new paint and no repairs. That's basically what this is,
Well,
you know.
well, actually, when you think about it, here's the good part. Here's the most change they've done. Jor-El and Laura are actually represented well.
Well, yeah, I would say that it really, again, reminisces to New 52. You know, how Jarrell and Laura were very much equals. Instead of, yeah, mainline, Laura is basically like just the wife that's waiting to see what Jarrell is going to do.
Yeah. So before I move on, but I really enjoyed this on this issue as well. But Aaron also said what's kind of cool about Superman is he's a solar battery, and at night he runs out of charge. That's why if you see him in the top panel here, he's walking to Venezuela instead of flying.
Oh, hmm.
That's why if you
interesting.
notice, actually, issue 1, when you first see like the suit, it's basically the suit is acting like a solar cell trying to recharge him.
So basically, he's like a plant.
He is super plant. You have to
Photosynthesis.
remember to water him every day.
Yeah, Clark is basically a plant. Yeah.
I just love the way you said that. So basically, he's a plant. So speaking of same old, so Superman and Lois ended. And okay, so let me tell you this. I liked the battle scenes. My problems get to where, okay, I agree with Britt. It's really weird that Bitsy's husband is playing older John, and how they basically it's more with the nuclear family. None of them have powers. Now the way they the plot reason I can see them explaining that is because Jordan and John are like half Kryptonian, so the DNA is diluted, and by the time they have their kids, the DNA is going to be even more diluted. So it's possible it's like the whole that's why the kids don't have powers, but still there's nothing with the Kryptonian anything in this.
Which is kind of sad because you basically Clark is the last son of Krypton, and his purpose was to preserve Krypton, and he basically killed it. So it's kind of like, wow, that is Superman's ending. Is that he honestly, that's a slap in the face, as with wearing the crest, the House of El Crest, and you killed your legacy as an L. It's not.
Well, remember, Britt, Superman is what I can do. Clark Kent is who I am.
And I really can't stand that, because if you want Superman to be like this immigrant story, and you want to say that he represents immigrants, or that even DC says that he represents refugees, but yet you can't acknowledge his birthright. You can't acknowledge his roots. That is something that, no, don't do that. If you want him to just be Clark Kent, take away Krypton then. Make I don't know, make Jonathan and Martha his biological parents, and I don't know, he got struck by lightning or something, or a meteor, or he um being on a farm, maybe a cow uh drunk some toxic water, and Clark drunk the milk. I don't know, just to explain the powers, but to ignore Krypton, and he uses the powers, he wears the crest, and then his ending is that basically Krypton no longer exists and it's just Clark Kent. Yeah, I don't take kindly to that at all. Um and that is why Kingdom Come will be the best ending for not only Superman but DC as a whole, because Clark, he sees within 1,000 years that the that Earth has advanced within agriculture and everything like that. Yes, Diana has passed, but at the same time, Clark honors her by wearing her cloak and her brooch, and it is basically him seeing. He's able to see within 1,000 years their legacy of within the Legion, and you see their kids or their kids' kids within the Legion, and yeah, you don't see you see a diverse um, group of legionnaires, not normal kids that seem like they're, Little House on the Prairie, uh, being as um, Rebirth Superman.
Yeah, this definitely is Rebirth Superman. Oh my god, I just put it together. I'm like, oh my. Well, at least the Superman isn't a coward, so technically he's not Rebirth Superman.
He's not, but he's very much Tomasi uh,
I'm gonna push back on
glorification.
that. Hang on, I'm gonna push back on that because this is the Superman that was pushing. Remember what I said when we talked about this show? This is the Superman who pushed back when one of the generals wanted him to only act in American interests.
Okay, maybe let's see.
Because Tomasi would have, if Tomasi had his way, Clark's cape would be the American flag.
You know what? That is so true.
And as he flies by, he would play America, F yeah.
That is so true.
So basically, he'd be Homelander, except not an a-hole.
Or he would be American Dad.
Jeez, yeah, but it's not Tomasi. I would say, in that way, he was like the Morrison New 52, but I mean, he's still married to Lois, so that puts him in post-crisis territory right there.
He's definitely post-crisis. I would say this ending, being on a farm, is Jurgens watered down, I would say, because he did want him on a farm. He wasn't as bad as Tomasi with the, rah rah America type thing. He still did it, but it wasn't just in your face. So I would say that this is very much Jurgens Superman. And well, honestly, I can't even call him Superman because to basically kill off, your legacy in a sense of, the Kryptonian legacy. And to have it as it's not diverse. It's very much a Puritan type thing. And, for Lois fans to talk about Superman and Wonder Woman as eugenics, this image is very much that.
It's kind of funny. That's why a lot of the Superman fans on Twitter were reacting the way they did, because they were like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. And they were making the banjo jokes. I'm like, oh, so, it's so funny when Superman fans they do a lot of projections, and it's like with Superman and Lois, Lois having powers, how they claim that Superman and Wonder Woman fans only care about Clark and Diana banging or whatever, but every tweet since this storyline has came about of Lois having powers. That is
and
all
then
they talk
my
about.
favorite, and I think I sent this to you, or you sent it to me, where they are talking about can this be a permanent thing now? And I'm like, what?
Right, yes, saying that can Lois have powers as a permanent thing is kind of like, doesn't that go against your entire argument against Superman and Wonder Woman, where you say supers with supers are boring, or that it is about like power scaling or eugenics or anything like that. But now it's okay when it's Lois, and she's really, honestly, she isn't doing anything special. She's very much in the background still of Clark. She is very much Supergirl. It doesn't feel like a um an equal team, And then how they also criticize Clark and Diana for the matching colors, but Lois, they look like twins, with Lois in the um in the super suit. It just looks like everything that they claimed about Superman and Wonder Woman and they claim to hate, Superman and Lois is doing the very things that they claim to hate.
Oh, come on, Britt. No one said these people were intellectually consistent.
True.
So then we got an interesting occurrence. So Creature Commandos premiered. And here's the thing. All right. I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. Now, here's the thing. So then they played like a post-credit trailer where it shows, okay, our first look at Superman, Wonder Woman, Starfire, and Captain Atom is literally their corpses. And by Britt, your friend was right.
Yeah, it's I didn't want to believe it.
I was like, as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, good. Because, no, I'm not against the idea of there being a nightmare future that they're trying to stop. Hell, I love the Snyderverse. But that was not the first time we saw these characters.
Yeah, that is the one thing that is kind of like first of all, the show itself is very adult in a way that it shouldn't have been the introduction to the new DCU.
Oh yeah, I still think. Let me put it this way: I wouldn't have chosen Superman as my first project for DC because the brand isn't strong enough. But at least Superman would have been a better choice than Creature Commandos. Although I do hear it's doing pretty well on Max, so okay, that's fine. I'm all for DC winning in some way.
It's yeah, I believe that it ranked number 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Max, it doesn't really have anything going for it. So
By the way, you know what's kind of funny? It got like a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you know who owns Rotten Tomatoes?
Warner Brothers.
Yeah, so literally what's kind of funny. So when I saw that, the meme below it was the meme that keeps going around of Obama giving himself a medal.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wow, because that's true. But okay, now the other thing, we got the introduction of Cersei. And I got to say, I'm impressed. I really like Cersei.
Okay, so with Cersei, and they say Cersei. I mean, that's however you want to say it. Okay, so the main issue with this is the Sons of Themyscira.
Yeah.
Being a parody of basically the Proud Boys and how, like, first of all, the thing is, the producer said that basically with Cersei being used, it wasn't thought too deeply. It was more so just a magic user used, and basically for the vision, the future vision that she was having. And it's kind of like, okay, so basically she isn't connected to Wonder Woman, which was already a red flag and, a ticket mark. Then once seeing the Sons of Themyscira, of course they are everything wrong with DC or that's quote unquote bad. A lot of these fans, especially on Twitter, wants to blame the New 52. Which this storyline is not the same as the New 52.
No, these are not the Sons of Themyscira from the New 52. No.
So, yes.
Also, can we stop doing the whole jokes about wokeism and like we want to get an island of only women? And I'm like, that joke just stopped being funny in 2020. Stop it.
Right. And seeing our first image of the Amazons too.
But
Gunn.
Here's what I'm gonna say: these may not be like the actual Amazons.
Well, Gunn earlier he said that he doesn't know if he wants them to be, it's kind of like he's on the fence of like
He
whether
doesn't know.
they
He doesn't know if he wants them to be. Oh God!
hold on, let me look for the quote.
Just make up your mind about something. I am
Okay,
trying to be positive about this thing, but you keep making it so difficult.
okay,
Not you,
so
Britt. James Gunn.
yeah, I got you. Okay, so he says James Gunn talks about the Amazons shown in Creatures Commandos. He says, I don't think we've definitely decided who they are, but I think I know who some of them are, but I don't want to reveal that here on Rotten Tomatoes because I don't want it to be considered canon forever. So it's a lot of I don't knows type things. And yeah, basically, he even though we see these Amazons, it's still the fact that he didn't say no that these are how the Amazons will look, but he just said he doesn't know yet um
The
whether
hilarious part is that remember in the Snyder Cut where there was that flashback scene to the Amazons and they're fighting in that? People are praising this, but blasting that as like sexism. And I'm like, oh, so you literally don't really care.
right. And then you have the producer um of the show saying that Wonder Woman does exist, but then it's kind of like James Gunn saying that people don't know, like within even within the show, people don't know about the mascara, or
Well,
they are.
that could be explained that they know like what there's a superhero named Wonder Woman. It just no one's actually been to the island yet, I think.
But the thing is, if you have Diana and she's active and they know of it, it's kind of confusing because they don't like if you see Diana as an Amazon and she represents the mascara, you have Cersei who claims of the mascara, but you're saying that it's kind of like people are just now knowing and they don't know if it's true or not. So Diana being established, it still sounds like it might be her year one or something like that. It's
Yeah,
not necessarily,
because Gunn was clear at one point. He may have changed his mind again, but I don't know that all the big guns are already established.
but if that's so, it still doesn't make sense that Diana's world isn't like known yet because that is her purpose is for the mascara or for her to be representing the mascara. Um, and again, for him to not know, it means that honestly, what the only like Wonder Woman uh no, known comics to take from is Perez and Azzarello, you know.
Which is sad because there's so many good Wonder Woman books you could use.
If you want in a sense of young Diana, um anything else is pretty much it's not known, but it's not something concrete, and it's not something that can be fleshed out as an impactful story for her.
Okay, I see.
Um, so I would say, yeah. So honestly, his best bet, which I don't know if he would actually do this, is be inspired by Perez. Um, as far as the as far as Cersei's vision of, everyone dead, first of all, it's also a double standard that everyone pretty much raged against Zack Snyder for the space Jesus allegory
Yep.
type thing, but you have Superman here crucified on a cross. It's kind of like, okay, you know, stop with the double standards.
Well, they will never stop with the double standards, Britt. And you're what's kind of funny is that the more James Gunn does this stuff and like, I'm gonna say homages because I don't think he's trying to rip off Zack. I'll say homage. The more you homage Zack's stuff, the more you're going to start to see these people stop critiquing Zack for this stuff because they're like, okay, now we literally can't. Because there were some people that thought that was problematic because, like, Superman was created by two Jewish guys, and then Corn Sweat is Jewish, I think. And look at
Yes, he
this.
is. Yeah, it is. It's kind of like, even with, you know, they want Superman to be like this holier than thou white savior type thing, and it's like, no, don't do that. Again, he's going to be privileged, preachy, and spoon fed and everything like that. But you want him to be inspirational. You want him to be like the face of DC. That, of course, we don't want broody, gloomy Batman to be, but at the same time, if you want a character that is truly inspirational and be different, it should have been Wonder Woman. And why I say that is because the fact that she was the inspiration and who was embraced more within the general audience for DCEU. And the fact that she's still
Her and
very much,
Aquaman.
yeah. Well, I would say Aquaman, uh, he didn't for that time he had the impact, but for people to kind of like really want to know Aquaman's story, as
Okay.
It didn't really resonate. Wonder Woman resonated to where you had the inspiration of women wanting to dress as her, women being more of I am Wonder Woman, that type of thing. There was nobody really saying I am Aquaman, stuff
Like,
like that.
no one tried to make Aquaman the ambassador to the UN.
Exactly, things like that. With Wonder Woman, you had so much impact, and it feels like a slap in the face for the fan base, even though they kind of like deserve to be simmered down a little bit. But the people who actually genuinely care for Diana's respect, it feels like a slap in
Yeah,
the face
and
that we
yeah, go ahead.
that we don't have her as, like, again, yes, our first introduction to all of the characters are a death scene, but at the same time, you have some fans that's kind of like, oh, what she's gonna wear, and they are just trying to see that she's wearing the classic suit, and that's all they care about, or they care about her age, which, yeah, Diana needs to be present day. She needs to be young because the old as dirt, weary warrior woman type thing is not her, and it just creates a whole bunch of contradictions and plot holes for her character and in the story, and we don't want that. Her purpose is to be in present day so she can not only learn the world for herself, um, in the present time, but also and lead for the present time, and
Mhm.
really challenge that change. Um, because if she fails within that 100 years that they want her to be established, it's kind of like, what was her purpose
Well,
as a
remember, in the
character?
DCEU, her purpose was not necessarily to bring peace to man's world when she left. It was to stop Ares.
Yeah, but it's still kind of like, okay, so after she defeats Ares and stuff, like, what is she supposed to do? That's it's kind of like she what we saw, she felt lost. She felt like she couldn't go back home, and then she just kind of like became a curator, but it and supposedly helping in the shadows, but that's just not Diana. She is supposed to be within the now.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
in DCEU, they still took that away from her to where she felt like she was just depressed. And and especially for a man that died 60 years, prior, it was kind of like, okay, get over it. And her her motivation should never be about a man. It should always be her, again, trying to lead uh in the present.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about this piece of speculation you got here that Paradise Lost is a prequel, and it's going to show why Cersei has beef with the Amazons, and Diana will leave the island to take down Cersei and clear the Amazons' perception. So to add to that, it could be that like Paradise Lost is like essentially an entire story, like series length of that scene in Wonder Woman when Hippolyta is telling Diana the whole story as a child, and then at the end is her like gearing up and then leaving the island.
Exactly. It's because it has to make sense. And as a storyteller ourselves, it has to make sense because if it's a whole bunch of plot holes, it takes you out of investing and everything like that. And for Cersei to Gunn said that she's gonna play a big role. So obviously she might be, a main villain even. Um, but for her to want to take the throne of the mascara, it has to be a reason why. And we want to see that clash of Diana against Cersei. And, you know, and why are the Sons of the Mascara? Like, how did they even come up with that? Why did Cersei pick these group of men um, to basically manipulate instead of, how Cersei actually turns men into beasts. So why
Yeah,
didn't
I was
she?
like, what?
So if you're going to have Cersei, she should have had the men as beasts, not as parodies of a racist group. Because that really just it's kind of like try hard of trying to be with the trends and um with that kind of commentary. If you aren't going to be serious of that type of political and racial commentary, don't do it because it feels like you're making fun of it in the wrong type of way of offending the side that's being oppressed or the side that's being that's trying to fight this this type of group. It
By the
feel like
way, is Cersei Amazonian?
the fact that they said she's Amazonian, no, I don't
Yeah,
think
I
so.
was wondering about that because when I heard that, I was like, wait, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, no, I don't think Cersei. I will look it up. Let me look it up now because but I do not think so.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, she's not an Amazon herself, according to Yahoo.
So she's not a. So why in the world? So she's just a mythological figure,
Oh,
just
you
a
know what it is?
sorceress.
You know what it is? On New Earth, in other words, post crisis, she is. It says that she was banished from the Amazons. Hang on, that may be where they're getting that from. Was the stress still finding someone else still alive? Okay, I. Yeah, that's like it may it may go back and forth, but I don't believe I've ever heard of Cersei being an Amazonian.
Yeah, I'm not really. So the one thing is that if Cersei is going by post crisis, it's a good chance that Diana, her whole backstory and everything is post crisis, which will be very much influenced by Perez, which is
Which
a good
means that
thing.
maybe Steve will be an old fart.
Jared. Well, yeah, he can probably be Kenny too.
Gosh.
But yeah, I don't know. It's only 2 episodes in, and like I said, it was very adult in a way that unnecessary. And it terrible to introduce your new like movie verse or whatever in, but at the same time, I mean, it's James Gunn, so he's gonna do what he's gonna do. DC fans, they'll either rage against it or they'll eat it, even if it's a lot of sugar honey iced tea with a lot of sugar, so
A lot of sugar cheese. That's great. I love that. But yeah, it's one of those things where no matter we're at the point. See, here's the problem. Here's a problem with DC fandom that I noticed is like there's a lot of toxic positivity. It's in other words because there was so much controversy with the DCEU and they're doing something new. The fan base refuses to like critique it. It's like they're like, let this man cook, and I'm like, yeah, but he's giving some concerning signs here.
Yeah, he burning stuff already.
Yeah, exactly. Which do I think James Gunn can do it? Can like do this well? Yes, he's a lot like Tom King in that way. Where yes, they're talented creatives. I've seen them do stuff that I liked. I'm fairly certain they can do this right. It's just the problem is, will they? That's the problem. Now, the one part that I did like, yes, it was mature, but I felt like the humor was a little less intense than Peacemaker and Suicide Squad. No, don't get me wrong. There were still like really cringe moments. Like, you know how you have that one friend who repeats the same joke over and over and over again after he finds out it's funny and the joke loses all humorous ability?
Right.
That's what there's like 2 jokes in this that he just kept going with that. I'm like, shut up. and then the princess that General Flag sleeps with is allegedly underage.
She's not. She's 27. However, her design is very young looking. Like at first you would think that she's about 16, 17 for sure.
You also notice that the other thing that people were praising this for is the fact that there's nudity in this, and I'm like, you pervs.
Yeah. And what's also kind of interesting is that Flag has white hair and the princess is blonde and kind of like looks designed as like Gunn's wife. So
Well, yeah, but so Gunn's thing justification for the why Rick Flag has white hair in Creature Commandos and not in Superman. It's because he said that Frank Grillo was like doing other projects and he couldn't dye his hair. It's funny how facial hair keeps screwing up DC movies. Isn't that funny? But then I'm like, then make him wear a wig. There's a way around this, dude. You have to have some continuity because unless he found Just for Men as soon as he leaves the Creature Commandos, it's what?
I mean, or like I don't know, digitally do it. I don't.
Do you really want DC to digitally enhance someone's hair again, Britt? We saw what happened in a certain League movie.
I mean, if he's only in it for a few minutes or so, I think that they could do something.
Or here's a good idea. As soon as you found that out, tell the animators of this show, give him black hair and a black beard.
Yeah, something like that. But DC is going to be DC, and also what Gunn said is that this show, that Superman happens like only a few months after this show. So it's if it's only a few months, always it's more than likely 4 to 5, maybe 3. But
so he definitely got some Just for Men then.
yeah,
He's gonna be pounding that hard because he doesn't have white hair in the movie.
Yeah, it's already a lot of discrepancies within this verse, within the comics. It's just kind of like, you know, you have to turn off your brain and just go with it if you are, trying to invest or trying to be optimistic with DC.
Yeah, it's just listen. The thing is, it's like I was told this was gonna be better, and some stuff is improved. Like I like how DC Studios is its own thing. That's great. It's just then I see stuff like the beard hair thing discrepancy, and I'm like, okay. And if you didn't intend for General Flag to be you when you color his thing like this, even though there's no reason for him to be colored that way, and it looks like you, what do you think people are gonna
Yeah.
think? At least from a PR standpoint, you suck at this job.
Yeah, and the fact that he's always online trying to debunk stuff, and then the fact that half the stuff that he's tried to debunk, it kind of has said otherwise. Yeah, just let it all go.
But again, no, I understand that some stuff he does have to dispute, like when people say that some stuff is in development. There were a few times where like blank movies in development, and James Gunn's like, no, that's not true. Because I understand that, because that can actually have reputational impact / damage on DC Studios as a brand. But when he's literally just, so I remember a day back in the day when we used to hear rumors and plot leaks and stuff, and then the studio would just ignore it, and then guess what? It would add to the speculation and make it more fun. But DC doesn't want people to have fun, apparently.
No, they don't. I mean, DC is they're so uptight. And
But
the fact
did you, by the way, see that there was a Release the Air Cut trending event at the same day, and it out-trended Creature Commandos?
honestly, I didn't even see. I saw Air, but I didn't even see Creatures, Commandos trending
It trended
much.
for a little bit. I'm gonna give credit where credit's due, but then it was by a lot to like 20K or like higher, and I'm like, well, that's embarrassing.
Really? So, I mean, I guess not all the time can you just go by trending, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if this is to be like the beginning of DCU and how, full force of promotion of this starting a new universe, you would think that it, you know, uh, was trending kind of like um, the Agatha show or something like that from Marvel. Um, I mean, X-Men 97 was trending like for days. But I understand that that is an older show, and it was good as what it was. But at the same time, it trended though, um, for days as if it was a live action movie. But creature creature commandos and just anything DC, honestly, the only time DC trends like that if it is something um that's controversy. I didn't even see like Green Lanterns or like the actors that were casted. Even if they did trend, it was only for a little while. It wasn't like a big thing.
It got to the point where the gun fans were pissed off that the Air stuff was happening and trending more, and I'm like, well, maybe if you wanted the Creature Commandos to really trend like explode, maybe you shouldn't have started off with Creature Commandos.
Yeah, and I feel like what it is that James he Gunn feels like he's still within that mindset of Marvel, how you know he was able to succeed with Guardians because it started in the middle of the success of, the Avengers and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
he thinks that DC C through Z-listers can have that same effect.
It's just like, again, someone challenged him on that with Swamp Thing, and he goes, "Well, don't put Swamp Thing into that window." Swamp Thing had like a very popular comic book run, and multiple popular shows and multiple popular movies, and I'm like, the movies were like 20, 30 years ago, and the show, which was very enjoyable, by the way, was canceled before the first season
Right. It's just things
on an
like that.
already niche streaming service called DC Online.
Right. It's things like that that's kind of like, okay, no, you can't justify this. And then you can't get like passive aggressive in a sense because, if things fail.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Gunn is the right person for the creative because here's why. For too long with DC, we had the studio head didn't know anything about comic books. They were just there to make the money. The way this is set up can work because Gunn knows comic books, and a lot of his stuff is actually not post-crisis that he's going for. It's like he even said with Superman, he's aiming more toward the Silver Age Superman, and I'm like, that's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him. But the thing is, like, when you look at, because here's the thing, the way this is set up is that you have a guy, Peter Safran, who's like the executive guy. He handles all the business stuff. Gunn handles all the storytelling stuff. And you know what? This is something Marvel doesn't have, and this is something that they could actually work with. It's just the problem is, I feel like there should be a check on Gunn to say, okay, can you at least put a Wonder Woman movie somewhere here? Because let's assume that we only get Gods and Monsters. Nothing labeled Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I have no idea what this title is. Like,
Wait, Gods and Monsters.
he
Wonder
has
Woman
the
fights
monsters.
both of those.
Yes. And she is not at all the focus at, the monsters you have with Creatures Commando, but
Gods?
yeah,
That's
like,
Wonder Woman. You could
unless
say Superman is a god, but as we know, Superman
honestly,
says we're not gods.
we're right. So I'm kind of like, are you trying to say that the Justice League is our gods? If you're trying to say that,
But
that
there's no
goes against,
Justice League movie so far.
yeah. So I don't know where the gods come in at all. Like, you would definitely have to have, first of all, if you are going to introduce the gods, like the mythical gods, again, that is tied to Wonder Woman. So
I do think
yeah.
he probably plans to. The reason why he hasn't announced that much other stuff later is because, again, remember, his contract expires in 2026. So I get the feeling he doesn't want to announce stuff. Then, like, he doesn't want to announce everything. Then, like, Superman fails, let's say, or like the DCU fails, and then he's gone. And then now all of a sudden, we're like, we have all these projects he announced, and we're not going to do them. That's why it's like, if you notice, the projects that are immediately coming out are the ones that come out up to the point where his contract expires.
Well, if that's the case, I mean,
Well, here's the thing. Let's say it doesn't go beyond like Lanterns. Then we get a DC universe with no Batman.
yeah. And then you don't have a Justice League movie at all. That's awful. I mean, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's okay. Whatever. It's one of those things where I'm. It's gotten to the point, Britt. See, here's the thing. Do I think the DC studios can be successful? Yes. I don't trust WB. I do not trust Warner Brothers at all. Here's the thing. Do I think that Gunn can pull this off? Maybe, but here's the problem. Even if I believe 100, even if I'm a 100% Gunn fan, Britt, I'm not entirely in because how do I know that WB isn't going to pull a Harry Houdini and yank the whole thing away like they've done literally every single time?
True, true,
The
so
the
true.
the director-driven studio, mind you, that's how they label themselves.
Yeah, you can't. That's why it's so hard to just invest in pretty, generally anything because you don't. It's too many wishy-washy.
Well,
You know,
Britt, do you know the story of the air cut? Like what happened to Suicide Squad?
uh, it's a similar story to Snyder, how
It's a
they
little
cut.
worse.
Oh,
Now, the movie was not as torn apart as Snyder, but what happened with Ayer is so he was making Suicide Squad. He released them. He submitted the movie to be like released and everything, and I guess cut the trailers and stuff. They cut together a more serious, action-packed trailer because the movie was supposed to be a drama, and it didn't get the traction that WB wanted. So they had a different trailer company come in, and that's what we got all the pop music in it. So they had the trailer company re-edit the entire movie behind Ayer's back. He had no idea any of this was happening. You know when he found out they butchered his movie?
when it was
At the
released.
premiere. He was at the premiere and he's watching and he sits down and he watches the movie. He's like, that's not what I did.
That is awful.
That and the Snyder story are why I will never trust WB again with DC. Or like them saying, yes, Cavill, and now you're coming back as Superman. What the hell, guys?
Right. The fact that they had Cavill announce that, and you have where DC, WB, and all those, affiliated accounts congratulate him, welcome him back, and then 3 days later or so, he writes that he's no longer Superman. And then not only that, but he was excited to meet with Gunn.
Mm-hmm.
you know so it's kind of like, wow, that was embarrassing, and it wasn't embarrassing for Cavill because WB screwed him over. He was a great Superman, and he cherished the character, he loved the character, he embodied the character. It was just how his version was mishandled by the company. And that's the thing that these fans need to understand. It's not the character, it's the way that they are written or handled. And that comes down to the creator. And that is
Yeah.
why you don't worship these creators, because they are part of not only the fan base is like the number one part of the problem for these characters, because you have self-entitled fans, but it is the creators, because even they put their bias within the stories and stuff, and they just make it where sometimes these characters are so unlikable and it's hard to invest in. So, you know, with Cavill, it was the same way that his character, they didn't give him time to develop. They wanted him to be just this happy-go-lucky Superman, again, like post-crisis, where he is
Immediately.
spoon-fed.
I was legit on a stream, and I kid you not, this was like when I was like, wow. When I said it's a character arc, he has to build up to that. And they were like, no, he has to be like that from the very beginning. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
or the fact that they want, and I mean even James Gunn and the rest of DC, they are really promoting Corn Sweat's Superman as like Chris Reeve 2.0.
and
And
I'm
it's kind of
like,
like,
that's not as big of a media draw as you think it is.
it's kind of is very much like an insult, I would say, because you are still chasing this nostalgia, and you aren't doing anything different. You're, again, old house, new paint, no repairs.
Well,
And
yeah, and the other thing is like we literally had that with Brandon Routh when he played Clark in Superman Returns, and guess how that turned out?
right. So the only thing is that, like how even with Death of Superman, the animated movie, or anything with Superman, they always use other characters to prop up Superman. So it feels like the supposed success that he has is very artificial.
Yeah, it's the thing is like the thing about it. But I've heard the thing about it is that the perceived success of Superman in the eyes of WB and the shareholders is going to be dependent on how Zaslav represented to the shareholders. Because here's the thing. If Zaslav said, hey, we're going to take some hits, but then eventually we'll get to the point where this is working. So just give it a second. Or if he said, we have a guaranteed $1 billion hit on our hands, I'm inclined to believe it's the latter, because Zaslav is quoted as basically saying that gun was sent by God. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's
If you're saying that communicates to me that you told the shareholders, oh, this is going to make $1 billion. And if that doesn't, in a time when WB is possibly up for sale, or even if it doesn't go for sale, if they replace Zaslav with someone else and Superman flops, let's say, or the DCU flops, yeah, guns out. That's it. All of this is going to go away really fast. So here's the thing. I would be more secure in these projects at least coming out if this contract was like until, like, let's say 2030 or something like that. So we would at least know that, like, okay, at least some of these projects a lot of these projects are going to come out. But the ones that are not in active development, we have like Paradise Lost, when they say, oh, we're still working on them, or Batman's not in the place we want to be in. I'm like, yeah, because you don't know if you're going to have a job.
Or that Gunn said that he's not satisfied with some of the scripts.
That's code word for I don't want that I don't know if I'm going to have a job after this.
But it's also how Gunn said these projects are going to be different. They have, of course, different directors. And I understand that, just like with anything, that scripts are, have to be approved by the higher ups and everything like that. But Gunn is the higher up of the DCU, and the fact that some people question like his control is like, no, he is the one who is casting these characters. He is the
when
one.
He said he would never cast for someone else's project, yet he cast Supergirl.
Yes, and Aaron Pierce, and
great choice for Jon Stewart, by the way.
We'll see. And yeah, everyone who is in DCU right now has been, cast by James Gunn. There hasn't been anyone else to do that, and it's kind of like, again, a lot of the things that he says very contradictory. He can say, again, one thing within an hour, and then the next is he switches up.
Yeah, you never know what he's gonna do, what his position is gonna be,
and it's very, I don't know. It's just, it shouldn't be this difficult. Again, if he cares about, or if he is so influenced by comics, the only thing that I don't want from Post Crisis is Superman, because it's so obnoxious, and just the status quo is very toxic and everything.
Well, add Lanterns to that list because Tom King is involved.
That too.
And it's grounded Green Lanterns where they're probably gonna kill off Hal Jordan.
Yes. But the only thing from Post Crisis I would say that definitely is Wonder Woman influenced by Perez. That is the only thing. Even Clark and Diana's friendship, if we even have that within the DCU, I highly doubt it, because it's WB, it's DC. They can barely have their.
Here's why I doubt it's going to be Post Crisis for Wonder Woman. What image of Wonder Woman did James Gunn share?
Well, yeah, I know he did New 52.
God of War. Just saying.
I mean, I
And
hope.
Sons of Themyscira. Hmm.
I mean, that is why I'm flip-flopping of, it would be an Azarello type origin. Um,
I'm thinking A, he's going to do the Zeus origin, and B, yeah.
or it'll be Historia because he mentioned that, but at the
You
same
know, I
time,
just
I don't.
realized, what if he does it where a post-credit scene for Paradise Lost is Cersei shows up and turns the Amazons into snakes and Hippolyta into stone?
I mean, uh, that does reference, New 52, but again, we would want the gods to be there,
No, I
because
know, but Gunn has changed so much of this, like Ultraman being a clone of Superman.
yeah, it's a
What?
lot. It's
There's
a
only
lot.
one, Britt. There's only one time the word Ultraman is ever used in DC, and that's evil Superman from another Earth. I'm pretty sure they're not doing that.
Yeah.
But I get you don't want to give it away that it's Bizarro. Just have KR on there or something. But no. But that annoys me just about as much as the crappy suit. And on that note, I think it's a good place to leave it. So Britt, what stories do you want to tease us with?
Okay, so I've completed some of the tonight of one shots. I will be, of course, sharing that with you soon, Jared, as an exclusive. I have another one shot where it is Diana needs to relax, and it again the inspiration is from Jid of Diana basically, holding her emotions in, and she needs to let go. So Clark is there to help her. We have chapter 3 of Shelter. Um, Continuing on with the building the Shelterverse and all of the ideas that we have, and I can't wait for us to share them, which will end up being an episode at the beginning of the year for us. So exciting. And also finishing Twist of Fate, where Clark and Diana meet as children, um, but they don't remember it. And they have to go within the story of um, basically, it's a mixture of New 52 and post crisis of them meeting and falling for each other. And with that twist of knowing that they had that connection as toddlers. Um, and I am at the last chapter. So I'm very excited to finish that and share that. We also have hit another, gained another 100 followers. So the Instagram is close to 67,000 now. And if it
At
stays
least
on
you're
track,
no longer in Lois Lane's number.
quiet. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but being on track, 70K will be soon. And, for a ship that is supposedly hated or failed to have,
That no one cares about. Yeah.
or that knows, yeah, it's kind of like it speaks volumes to the fandom and to the concept of the relationship that it is a positive and that it does have an investment of fans and that it does have a positivity to it. So we just want to keep that positivity going with every, fan that has their that gives support and we give our support, but also show their talent, in celebrating Superman and Wonder Woman as a couple or friends, and just you know, you don't have to feel bad as how these some of these nostalgia fans want you to feel, you know, that you aren't aligning with the tradition, you know.
Exactly.
In this time, especially in this time, that we embrace diversity, and that is what Superman and Wonder Woman as individuals and as a couple represent. So we are going to keep doing that.
Hell yeah. So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane, and Steve Trevor is Steve Never. And along with General Zod, Zoe and Maximat for life. See you later.